B, me, anon. One more developer parked in a sea of identical desks under fluorescent purgatory. Work in IT for a comfortably forgettable company tied to logistics tech. If you asked what we actually do, I'd probably give you a vague answer and change the subject. What matters is this. Our systems keep freight rolling across highways, and as long as nothing crashes, my direct deposit shows up on time. The role sits in that sweet spot, mentally engaging without being soul-crushing. Enough puzzles to stay sharp, not enough chaos to lose sleep over. The team is solid, mostly dudes ranging from fresh-out-of-college kids who still think coding is a magical art form to seasoned veterans like Brian. Brian is one of our senior architects. He's been at the company since the servers were the size of a refrigerator and ran on distilled hamster farts. He's seen it all, and he has this permanently unimpressed look on his face. Nothing phases him. Our direct boss is Mr. Millward, an old-school manager. He's probably in his late 50s, wears the same style of shirt every day, and communicates mostly through grunts and terse emails. Millward doesn't care about your feelings. He doesn't care about your personal development journey. He cares about two things: clean code and meeting deadlines. If you deliver on those two, you could show up to work in a clown suit and he wouldn't say a word. It's a meritocracy. You do good work, you get left alone. You screw up, you hear about it. Simple. The office politics are minimal. We're in our own little world of servers, databases, and bug tickets. The rest of the company mostly leaves us alone because they think we're wizards who speak in binary. Life is stable, predictable, comfortably boring. This was the status quo for a good few years. Then the email landed. The subject line was something like, "Exciting leadership announcement for our People and Culture Division." My first thought was, we have a People and Culture Division? Apparently it's what they call human resources now. Sounds friendlier, I guess. The email announced our new head of P&C, a woman named Olivia. There was a professional headshot attached. She looked young, maybe late 20s, with that hyper-enthusiastic, professionally cheerful smile that you only see on HR people and cult leaders. A company-wide meeting was called for her official introduction. It was mandatory, so our whole department had to trudge over to the main conference hall. Mr. Millward looked like he'd rather be wrestling a crocodile. Olivia gets up on the small stage, radiating an almost weaponized level of positive energy. She launches into a speech, and it's like a corporate buzzword bingo card came to life. She talked about re-energizing our corporate synergy, fostering psychological safety, and creating brave spaces for authentic dialogue. I'm pretty sure I saw Brian's soul briefly leave his body. Most of us just zoned out, nodding along while mentally debugging a piece of code we'd been stuck on. Just another suit saying suit things. This wouldn't affect our little IT bubble. Oh, how wrong he was. .jpg. We thought we could just ignore her and go back to our jobs. But her brand of HR was proactive, aggressive even. About a week after her intro, the first real initiative started, another company-wide email. This time, a mandatory workplace climate survey. It was anonymous, of course. They always are. The questions were weird, not the usual, "Are you satisfied with your benefits?" stuff. It was things like, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you feel your voice is valued in meetings? Have you ever witnessed or been the subject of a microaggression? Do you believe our company's promotion structure is free from unconscious bias? Does leadership foster an environment where patriarchal norms are challenged? I'm looking at this stuff, and I don't even know how to answer. What's a patriarchal norm in the context of server maintenance? Do the servers have a gender? Should I ask them their pronouns? Most of us just clicked through it, giving neutral answers to get it over with, so we could get back to work. It was a mistake. We were feeding the beast without even knowing it. A couple of weeks go by. We forget about the survey. Then, another mandatory all-hands meeting is called. The title of the presentation is Our Path Forward, Analyzing and Actioning Our Climate Survey Results. Olivia is back on stage, but this time she has charts and graphs. She starts by saying how brave everyone was for their honesty in the survey. Then she drops the bomb. The data, she explains, shows a clear and troubling trend. There's a pervasive culture of systemic toxicity and a significant issue with unaddressed toxic masculinity, primarily concentrated in the male-dominated departments. She doesn't name our department specifically, but she keeps talking about technical divisions and legacy teams. Everyone knew who she was talking about. All eyes were on us. She puts up a word cloud that was supposedly generated from the written comments. The biggest words are dismissive, intimidating, boys club, and arrogant. I look around at my team. We're just a bunch of quiet nerds. The most intimidating guy we have is probably Brian, and that's only because he can kill a man with a single disappointed sigh. There were no specifics, no actual incidents mentioned. Just vague, sweeping accusations based on her analysis of an anonymous survey we all clicked through in 5 minutes. It felt like a setup, a foregone conclusion. She came in looking for a problem, and if she couldn't find one, she'd invent it. The guys on my team were simmering. You could feel the anger in the room. We were being collectively accused of being villains, without a single piece of evidence. Mr. Millward was sitting with his arms crossed, his jaw so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. But Olivia wasn't done. She had a solution. The next day the email arrives, the real declaration of war. Subject: introducing the mandatory REMAS program for male employees. REMAS stood for Responsible Male Allyship and Support. It was a series of 4-hour workshops held once a month, and they were mandatory for all male staff, and only male staff. The email laid out the learning objectives. I still remember them. It was like a parody of itself. Objective 1, to unpack the concept of male privilege and understand its impact on the workplace. Objective 2, to identify and dismantle personal and systemic toxic masculine behaviors. Objective 3, to learn techniques for decentering oneself in conversations and amplifying marginalized voices. Objective 4, to develop an actionable apology and a framework for reparative action. It was literally an apology session. They wanted us to sit in a room for 4 hours and be told how we were all secretly awful people because of how we were born. And then we were supposed to apologize for it. The final line of the email was the kicker. Participation is not optional and will be reflected in your annual performance review. A failure to engage constructively will be seen as a refusal to align with our core company values. The office was silent for about 10 minutes after that email went out. It was the kind of heavy-loaded silence you get after a really bad piece of news. Then, the whispers started. Guys getting up from their desks to talk in hushed, angry tones by the coffee machine. This wasn't just corporate nonsense anymore. This was a direct, targeted insult. It was a presumption of guilt. We were all being sent to re-education camp. A group of us, maybe a dozen guys from the department, decided to go talk to Mr. Millward. We crowded into his small office. He leaned back in his chair and just listened, letting everyone vent. People were furious. This is discriminatory. They're accusing us of being problems just for being men. Is this even legal? When everyone was done, Millward let out a long sigh. He looked tired, old. He told us he agreed with us, that he thought the whole thing was a colossal waste of time and deeply insulting. He said he went to his own boss, one of the VPs, as soon as he heard about the plan, but the VP was the one who hired Olivia. He was fully on board with her vision. Millward was told that this was a critical top-down diversity and inclusion initiative and that he needed to ensure his department's full and enthusiastic compliance. His hands were tied. "I can't stop this," he said. "The order comes from the top floor. All I can say is go. Sit there, keep your mouth shut, let them say what they want, and get back to work. Don't give them any ammunition." We left his office feeling completely defeated. Our own boss, a man we respected, was powerless. The system was against us. There was no one to appeal to. We were being forced into this, and our only option was to sit there and take the abuse. The mood in the department for the next week was grim. Productivity dipped. Nobody joked around anymore. Everyone was just stewing in their own quiet rage. The first session was scheduled for a Friday morning, 2 weeks away. It felt like a death sentence. The turning point came during a lunch break, the week before the first scheduled session. A bunch of us were sitting in the cafeteria, listlessly pushing food around our plates. The conversation was the same it had been for days. How ridiculous the situation was. How unfair. Some of the younger guys were planning to fight back during the session. They were going to use logic and reason. They were preparing arguments, citing statistics, ready to debate Olivia on her own turf. That's when Brian, who had been quietly eating his sandwich and listening, finally spoke up. He put his food down, wiped his mouth, and looked at the eager young guys. "Stop," he said. Just one word, but it cut through all the noise. The table went quiet. "You think you can argue with her? You think she'll listen to your facts and logic?" He shook his head slowly. "You're trying to play chess with a pigeon. It'll just knock over the pieces, crap on the board, and then fly back to its flock to declare victory." That line just hung in the air. It was perfect. It was exactly the situation we were in. He continued, his voice low and even. "You can't win by playing her game. Her game is designed for you to lose. The moment you start arguing, you've already lost. You become the defensive, aggressive man she's expecting. You prove her point for her." He leaned forward. "You don't fight this head on. That's what she wants. She wants a confrontation. It would give her a story to tell, a villain to point at. We don't give her that." "So what do we do, Brian?" one of the junior devs asked. "Just sit there and take it?" Brian got a small, wry smile on his face. It was the first time I'd seen him smile in weeks. "We don't refuse to go," he said. "We become unable to go." He paused, letting that sink in. "Think about it. What language do they speak? HR speak. Corporate jargon. We use it against them." He laid out the plan. It was so simple, yet so brilliant. "The morning of the session, we all have a sudden, acute medical issue. What kind? A stress-induced migraine. What's the cause? A hostile and accusatory work environment that is causing us significant mental and emotional distress." My jaw dropped. He was weaponizing their own terminology. "We all send the same email, or very similar ones. We quote their own psychological safety buzzwords back at them. We're not refusing a mandatory training. We are taking a medically necessary sick day due to conditions created by the company itself." The beauty of it was overwhelming. It was completely legal. Taking a sick day for stress or a migraine is legitimate. It was unprovable as a coordinated effort, as long as no one talked. And it hit them where it hurt. It wasn't a protest they could dismiss as male fragility. It was a health and safety issue, framed in their own language. It turned their weapon right back around and pointed it at them. The energy at the table completely shifted. Defeat turned into excitement. This wasn't a losing battle anymore. This was a guerrilla warfare campaign. The plan spread like wildfire. That afternoon, a secure anonymous chat group was created. One of the network security guys set it up so it couldn't be traced back to anyone. An invitation was quietly passed around to every man in the IT department. Then it spread to the guys in network operations, then to the database administrators. Within 48 hours, every single man in our entire technical division was in that chat. 34 of us in total. The plan was finalized and agreed upon. The day of the training, starting at 8 a.m., everyone would email their direct manager and CC, the general HR inbox. The template was simple. "Due to the onset of a severe stress-induced migraine, I will be unable to come to work today. The current work environment has created a level of anxiety that is directly impacting my health, and I will be taking a sick day to recover." No one would answer their phone. No one would answer work emails. Complete radio silence. There was a surprising level of solidarity. Not one person hesitated. The injustice of the situation had united everyone. Even guys from different teams who barely knew each other were in perfect lockstep. We found out later that a couple of the women on our floor knew something was up. They weren't stupid. One of them, a project manager who had her own run-ins with Olivia's incompetence, just gave me a small nod and a wink one afternoon. No words exchanged, but the message was clear. Good luck. It turned out many people outside our little circle saw Olivia for what she was, a corporate ideologue on a power trip. The days leading up to the session were filled with a tense, nervous energy. It felt like the night before a huge critical product launch, a mix of fear and adrenaline. What if it failed? What if someone panicked and confessed? We could all be fired, but what was the alternative? To sit in that room and be humiliated? To accept the label of toxic and privileged that she was trying to pin on us? No. The risk was worth it. We were drawing a line in the sand. The night before Apology Day, I logged into the chat one last time. The channel was a sea of green dots, all 34 of us, online. The final message from the chat admin was simple. See you on the other side. 0800 hours. Go time. I set my alarm for 7:55 a.m. I had my email draft saved. The recipient fields were filled out. My finger would be hovering over the send button. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we weren't just helpless cogs in a machine. We were taking back a small sliver of our dignity. Tomorrow, Olivia's grand re-education program was about to encounter a fatal, division-wide exception, and I couldn't wait to see the error log. I woke up at 7:30 a.m. My apartment was silent. Usually, on a Friday, I'd be rushing through my morning routine. But this morning, there was no rush. There was no commute. There was only a single critical task to perform at 8 a.m. sharp. I made coffee, my hands feeling a little shaky. It was an absurd feeling. I was nervous, like a soldier before a battle. But the battle was just sending an email and then going back to bed. Still, the stakes felt incredibly high. At 7:55 a.m., I sat down at my personal computer. The email was already typed out, sitting in my drafts. I had the secure chat channel open on my second monitor. One by one, the other 33 guys came online. The channel filled up with green dots. No one was typing. The silence was deafening. We were all just waiting, watching the clock. A digital vigil. 7:59. My heart was pounding. This was it. The point of no return. The clock ticked over to 8 o'clock. I clicked send. Instantly, the chat channel exploded. Not with words, but with a single repeated character. A simple confirmed sent. Or just a checkmark emoji. It was a cascade, a digital domino fall. Within 30 seconds, all 34 of us had confirmed. The eagle had landed. The package was delivered. The pigeon was about to find an empty chessboard. The admin posted a final message. Go dark. Don't answer calls. Don't check work email. Be sick. We talk here, and only here. Godspeed. Then, silence again. I shut down my computer. My work phone, sitting on the counter, was put on silent and flipped face down. The deed was done. It was a weird, surreal feeling. I was sick, but I felt fine. I had the whole day ahead of me, but I couldn't really relax. I spent the morning trying to watch movies, but I couldn't focus. I kept wondering what was happening at the office. Was it working? Did anyone break ranks? Was there a SWAT team getting ready to bust down my door for corporate mutiny? The rest of this story is what we pieced together afterward from various sources. From the few sympathetic people who were there to witness the meltdown, and from the quiet, almost unspoken details Mr. Millward let slip in the weeks that followed. The day at the office started normally for everyone else. Olivia, apparently, was in high spirits. She was seen walking into the office with a box of donuts for her breakthrough session. She had her presentation loaded, the conference room booked and prepared with a whiteboard and markers. This was her moment, her chance to make her mark on the company culture. At 8:45 a.m., she made her way to the large conference room, expecting to find 34 sullen, resentful men waiting for her. Instead, she found an empty room. We were told her first reaction was annoyance. She probably figured we were just being difficult, showing up late as a form of protest. She stood by the door, tapping her foot, checking her watch. 9 a.m., still an empty room. The annoyance started to curdle into confusion. She went back to her desk and decided to send a sharp reminder email. That's when she saw it, her inbox, a tidal wave of identical out-of-office notifications, one after another. An email from me, an email from Brian, an email from the junior guys, the mid-level guys, the senior architects, all of them with nearly the exact same subject line, sick leave, employee name, and all of them containing the same basic message about a stress-induced migraine. The story goes that she just stared at her screen for a full minute, her cheerful HR mask slowly melting away. This wasn't a few guys being difficult. This was everyone. This was a coordinated, deliberate act. Her first move was to try and reassert control. She started calling people. She called my extension, voicemail. She called Brian's extension, voicemail. She tried our work cell phones. All of them went straight to voicemail. Her confusion was now rapidly escalating into full-blown panic. Her meticulously planned session, her grand debut as the company's cultural savior, was falling apart. She had no audience for her sermon. Her next move was to march straight to Mr. Millward's office. She burst in without knocking, apparently clutching a printout of one of our emails. She demanded to know what was going on. She called it a mass walkout, an act of organized insubordination. She told Millward he needed to get his men in line and order them to come to the training immediately. Mr. Millward, bless his cynical, coffee-stained heart, just leaned back in his chair. He calmly took a sip from his mug. He gestured to his own computer screen, which was also filled with our emails. "There's nothing I can do, Olivia," he said, his voice flat. "My entire team is sick. They've all reported a hostile work environment causing them physical distress. As their manager, and as per the company's own people and culture guidelines, their health and well-being are my top priority." He used her own words, her own ideology, as a shield. It was perfect. She was sputtering, trying to argue that it was obviously a coordinated lie. "How can you prove that?" Millward asked her. "Do you have access to their private medical information? Are you a doctor? I have 34 official sick notifications. On paper, this is a departmental health crisis." Right at that moment, as if on cue, the red light on Millward's desk phone began to flash. It was the direct line from our biggest client, the multi-million-dollar account that basically paid all our salaries. Millward looked at the flashing light, then back at Olivia. "I'd love to discuss this further," he said, the slightest hint of a smirk on his face. "But there appears to be a major outage on the client's main logistics portal, and unfortunately, every single person qualified to even diagnose the problem is currently incapacitated." He picked up the phone. Olivia was left standing there, her authority completely gone. She couldn't order us in. She couldn't punish us without proof. She had created a problem, and now the consequences of that problem were blowing up in her face. The situation went from bad to worse over the next couple of hours. The outage for the big client was real. It was a critical server failure that normally would have been a 15-minute fix, an all hands on deck, but routine problem. But there were no hands. The client was losing, according to later estimates, over $100,000 for every hour their system was down. Their CIO was on the phone with Mr. Millward, screaming. Mr. Millward, playing his part perfectly, was the picture of helpless empathy. He explained there was a sudden, unprecedented viral outbreak that had swept through his entire department. He had no one. He had no ETA for a fix. The news of the operational collapse quickly climbed the corporate ladder. It jumped from department head to director, and then from director to the executive floor. The VP who had hired Olivia, the one who was so excited about her vision, suddenly had a 5-alarm fire on his hands. This was no longer a theoretical feel-good HR initiative. This was a business catastrophe, a real-time financial hemorrhage. Around 11:30 a.m., an emergency meeting was called in the main executive boardroom. The attendees, the VP, a very flustered Olivia, and a stoic, unflappable Mr. Millward. What happened in that room became a legendary story in our department. Olivia, desperate to save herself, went on the attack. She tried to frame the entire incident as a sexist, coordinated rebellion against a female leader. She called it a textbook example of the very toxic masculinity she was trying to address. She argued the men were trying to intimidate her, to sabotage her efforts to create an inclusive workplace. She recommended immediate disciplinary action against all 34 of us for gross insubordination and conspiracy. She was trying to make it a culture war battle. The VP wasn't interested in a culture war. He was a businessman watching his balance sheet burn. He let her finish her tirade. Then he turned to Mr. Millward. "What's the status of the client portal?" Millward gave him the facts. "Completely down. The client has indicated they will be seeking legal compensation for breach of our service level agreement. I estimate we've lost them over $250,000 so far." The VP's face went pale. He then looked back at Olivia. His voice was apparently ice cold. He didn't care about her feelings or her ideology. He asked a single brutal question. "Explain to me, in concrete financial terms, the return on investment for this REMAS program," he said. "Because from where I'm sitting, in its very first day, your initiative has cost this company a major client relationship and a significant amount of money. What exactly is the upside here that justifies this level of operational risk?" Olivia had no answer. She couldn't answer in his language. Her entire worldview was built on concepts like privilege and systemic issues, not profit and loss. She tried to stammer something about long-term cultural health and employee retention. The VP cut her off. He turned to Millward. "What do you need to get the system back online?" Millward's response was simple. "I need my team." "And what do they need to come back to work?" the VP asked. Millward looked directly at Olivia, then back at the VP. "They need a work environment free from collective blame and compulsory accusatory training sessions. They need the threat of this program to be permanently removed." That was it. The checkmate. The choice for the VP was simple: support the one HR person who was causing the problem, or support the 34 technical staff who were the solution. It was never a choice at all. At 1:15 p.m., a new email went out to the entire company from the VP's office. It was a masterclass in corporate damage control. After receiving initial feedback on the proposed REMAS pilot program, it began, "We have decided to pause the initiative to allow for a more thorough review and recalibration of our educational strategies. We appreciate the passionate engagement on this topic and remain committed to fostering a positive workplace for all." It was a white flag, wrapped in a corporate-speak burrito. Pause. Recalibration. Passionate engagement. We all knew what it meant. The apology sessions were dead. We had won. In our secure chat, someone posted a link to the email. The channel was silent for a moment, and then it was just a flood of victory gifs and relief messages. We had done it. We held the line, and the line had held us. The fallout for Olivia was swift and brutal. She wasn't fired. That would have been too clean, and it might have opened the company up to a lawsuit. Instead, she was subjected to a fate far worse in the corporate world, a public neutering. Her title was changed. She was no longer the head of people and culture. She was given a new, meaningless title, something like Director of Administrative Process and Documentation. Her duties were stripped away. She was taken off all high-level strategy. Her big projects were indefinitely postponed. Her new job, effectively, was to oversee things like the company's vacation day policy and ensure that payroll forms were filled out correctly. She was shuffled off to a small office in a forgotten corner of the building. She became a non-person, a ghost haunting the HR department. Her power, her authority, her entire reason for being at the company had been surgically removed. Every time we saw her in the hallway after that, she would just stare at the floor, her face pale. The weaponized cheerfulness was gone, replaced by a permanent look of bitter defeat. The public humiliation was complete. The next day, a Monday, all 34 of us returned to work. We walked into the office as a group. The floor was silent. Everyone was watching us, our non-IT colleagues. They all knew what had happened. We didn't say a word. We just went to our desks, logged in, and started working on the massive backlog of tickets that had piled up. Mr. Millward held a brief team meeting. He stood at the front of the room, looking out at all of us. He didn't smile. He didn't congratulate us. He just took a sip of his coffee and said, "Glad to see everyone is feeling better. The client is furious. We have a lot of work to do. Get to it." But as he turned to walk back to his office, he caught my eye, and he gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was all the acknowledgement we needed. It was a nod that said, "You took a huge risk. You broke the rules the smart way. You stood up for yourselves. And you won. Now, let's never speak of this again." The team was never the same after that. It was better. There was a new sense of camaraderie, of unspoken respect. We had faced a common enemy and come out the other side, united and victorious. We had been pushed into a corner, accused and condemned without trial. We had been told that our very identity as men was a problem to be fixed. We couldn't fight it with arguments. We couldn't fight it with anger. So we fought it with silence, with unity, with a single coordinated sick day that brought a multi-million-dollar company to its knees. We never wanted a war. We just wanted to be left alone to do our jobs. And in the end, that's exactly what we got.